Hello everyone. My name is Irfan Shahzad, and as promised last week, I'm sharing the details of the training with you guys. So let's get started. So first of all, the prerequisites, which the knowledge of certain topics, it's will be really helpful in order to get the most out of this training. So first of all is that if the enterprise integration pattern, so you should be familiar with some of the basic patterns like asynchronous message processing, event-driven architectures, things like that. Basic understanding of the API concepts and different types of API, that is also needed because we will be consuming and exposing the REST APIs as well as the SOAP APIs. So you should have the understanding of these concepts. We will also be working with different data formats like XML and JSON. So their understanding is also critical for this training. Since IBM Data Power is a security hardening device, so it provides a really good support for implementing some of the security features like cryptography, data encryption, uh, transport level encryption, things like that. So basic understanding of these concepts will also be helpful. I'll try to cover as much as background as possible, but to have a little background will be really helpful. Most importantly, the containerization technology, because this is what we will be using for our deployment purposes of IBM Data Power. Familiarity with any modern programming language is needed because we will be implementing certain logic in the training. So and mainly we'll be using the JavaScript and XSL transformation. These are the two main languages uh, supported by IBM Data Power for doing certain processing of data. Furthermore, some background with the version control basics is also needed, and we'll be using Git and GitHub uh, for sharing the resources. Uh, and also, lastly, uh, the the background with the relational database and SQL is not really needed, but since we'll be doing the integration with the database, so this will be helpful. Uh, let's quickly talk about the technology landscape. So like I said, for the container management platform, I'll be using Podman, but it's equally uh, possible you can use Docker as well. Operating system, for me, I'll be using Red Hat Enterprise Linux version 9. But the it's easily the steps which I'll be showing you, it can be easily replicated on Windows and even Mac. For the development and testing, we'll be using Visual Studio Code. We will not be using Visual Studio Code for the project development, but it will be really helpful in formatting as well as identifying syntax and errors in our code. Uh, since IBM Data Power provides its own interface for doing the development, so we'll be copy pasting the code from here, from Visual Studio Code into the IBM Integration Bus runtime. Postman will be using we can use a plugin that is available inside the Visual Studio, or you can do the installation independently. For messaging and event processing, event streaming, we'll be using IBM MQ and Apache Kafka. Version control, like I said, we'll be using Git and GitHub. Programming model is XSL transformation in the JavaScript. So let's quickly talk about the training objectives. So first of all, we'll covering during the course of this training, we'll first start off with the IBM Data Power installation, and then we'll talk about what are the different capabilities of IBM Data Power and what are the common use cases which IBM Data Power is designed to solve. Uh, so some of the examples are given here. So the most importantly, it can act as a API gateway and as well as the security in order to enforce security mechanisms on your APIs. It can also be used as a rate limiting and threat protection device. Uh, we can have so there might be scenarios where you might want to route information based on the content to the backend. So rather than exposing separate endpoints to the end user, what we do is we expose a single endpoint, and then based on certain content, we will do the routing and route it to the appropriate backend system. Uh, Another important point or use case for data power is the policy enforcement. So organization do have certain policies which they want to enforce. Uh, it might be a security auditing. So these are some of the use cases where data power can really help. Uh, the data and protocol transformation. So since IBM data power can also act as a middleware, so it can do a data and protocol transformation as well. For example, you are receiving your input from the client. You are exposing your service as an HTTP service, and but your backend expects your data to be uh, in XML, let's say, and it's listening um on an MQ. So this is how you can do these integration. And lastly, the performance and the data caching. So that can also be used in order to improve the performance of your APIs. Uh, we'll also look at how many ways we can interact with the data power. Uh, what are the different services which are available? So we'll start off with the multi-protocol gateway data, uh, the proxy service, and then API gateway. Um Data power has this concept of what is called the front side handler. So how you want to expose your service will be determined based on the front side handler that is configured on your service. So we'll be looking at what are the different front side handlers that are available within IBM data power and how they can be configured. Um so uh, in order to do the processing within the data power provides you certain processing policies which you can use to do certain tasks or activities onto the data uh, before sending it to the backend, and as well as once you received a response and before sending to the client, you can even do certain manipulation on that data as well. So we'll talk about that. uh, uh, Also the management of the keys and the certificates within the data power, that's very crucial. Securing the communication, so how data power can be used as a security hardening device. Like I said, exposing your services over HTTPS protocol requires certain configuration that needs to be done, so we'll be looking at that as well. And also the exception handling, how we can handle certain errors. For example, if our backend is not available, how we can send the response back to the client. Or what we can do is we can store those messages in store those requests in a message queue, so that they can be processed later on. um, like I said, IBM Data Power provides you these capabilities, like for doing the programming within the Data Power. Certain logic you can write either in the gateway script or XSL transformation. So we'll be looking at that, and also what are the different cryptographic functions that are supported and how we can implement it within the Data Power. Lastly, the database and the MQ integration. So we'll close our training on that. Uh, I've already set up a GitHub repository where I'll be posting all of my resources. So you can clone this repository. So the link is provided. Um, uh, so this is where you'll be getting all your resources, all the solutions for the training. I'll be using Red Hat Linux Enterprise. As a next step, I'll show you in a separate video how to do the installation of certain um, softwares that are needed for the development. Uh, and the most important thing is uh, the registration link for this training is also live. I'll be sharing the link with you guys. So really looking forward for you to have you on board on this training. So that's pretty much it from my end. I wish you all best of luck, and let's meet you. We'll meet you in the training. Have a nice day.